Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. With me today is ag meteorologist Greg Soulje. Welcome back, Greg. Great to have you with us on this Tuesday.
Thank you much, Sarah, and a happy July 1 to 1 and all. The calendar continues to move at a pedal to the metal pace, it seems like, already into July here. And so it goes. What are you going to do?
Yep, and the corn's getting over knee high. You know that old knee high by the 4th of July? Yeah, it's way past that. I'm starting to see tassels on my sweet corn already, so that's pretty good.
And checked with my radio pals and troublemakers in Champaign, Danville, and east, west, north, south there, and outside of a pocket or two of it's not a worry. I mean, it should be a worry for some of those folks, those producers that were hit with severe weather. Yeah, it's almost, shoulder height in some areas out there. And so we continue to move along, and still some issues a little too wet, some issues a little too dry, but we'll take a look at the numbers. They continue to be very good, very positive as a whole for corn and soybeans here at this point in the growing season.
And we've got our farm show site out there in Grand Island, Nebraska, Husker Harvest Days, and they had some flooding recently. Yeah. I believe it was a week ago, maybe, but the site was great. Even though water, I guess, was flooding through the front door of the Walmart, our site was looking good. So
excellent, glad to hear. And there were some socials that had that were like baseball-size hail going through people's kitchen windows out there in that particular storm complex when it got going the afternoon and evening before. So they do it big in Texas. They do it big in Nebraska as well for sometimes the wrong reasons regarding severe weather.
There you go. All right, your slides are up. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, as I mentioned, happy July 1 as we get ready to roll into a holiday weekend around here and across the Corn Belt. The showers have basically wound their way out of the picture. Again, typical distribution and amounts the past, let's say, 5 days across the Corn Belt, from flooding rainfall upwards of 7 inches, Bloomington, Indiana, to about Terre Haute south of there and into the lower Wabash. We had some spots that picked up generally 1 to 2 and locally 3 inches in some areas of eastern Indiana, across parts of Ohio, southern Wisconsin, northeast Illinois, sections of the western Corn Belt, and others got just barely enough to settle the dust and wreck the wash on the pickup truck. But that's the way it goes in the summertime distribution of rainfall across the Corn Belt. But as a whole, and of course, every year there's always variability in some areas, some folks that have just not got it going in the right direction. But as a whole, not bad. 73% of the U.S. corn acreage rated good to excellent. As of the 28th of June, 66% of the beans in the same category. So those are some outstanding numbers around here. Still, as we look forward into the rest of the summertime season, and we'll have maybe a little updated outlook on that, by the way, which really does not and will not carry any big headlines on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. We'll just kind of take a little updated, remind you look at the way the rest of the summertime season goes. No different than what we talked about last month in our half-hour live stream here. That, again, some complications may be returning to the west and northwest. Probably, I think, is going to end up being too wet at the Ohio Valley, Lower Lakes region, Corn Belt wise, as the tropics are getting a little more active. No storms, but the fetch of moisture is substantial. But at least they need the rain down there into parts of Florida. Speaking of the rain, still limited down through parts of Texas. Some scattered showers, thunderstorms. Again, as you pointed out, Sarah, all or nothing on the plains this time of the year. We talked about May 1 and beyond. It's a more of a Mediterranean type climate, an inch or two of rain here and a drop or two of rain there. Just a little speckle of hail in some spots, and baseball and tennis ball size hail in some areas. They had that with some of that flooding rainfall in the Grand Island over the past week to 10 days. And they've made some progress as well on winter wheat harvest operations. About a third of it is harvested in through Kansas, and that's brought the general numbers up in a better condition, but still a bit behind average, 37% complete by the 28th. That is a bit behind the 5-year average. But again, making improvement, and outside of these scattered random storms, you'll be able to dodge and work your way through them as the combines continue to work on northward. The excessively wet soils for now have diminished. Some at least more adequate supplies of soil moisture across the deep south and southeastern states. We have some wet weather related issues that may come into play over parts of Georgia, southeastern and eastern Alabama, Georgia over the weekend into next week. And we've watched a pretty good fetch of moisture making its way into parts of Texas and primarily the Rio Grande. But that's, again, these monsoon storms that either are flash flooding in one nature or virtually nothing at all in the other. So the story continues on as it ought to be for early July, but still a fair amount of the soils in the deep south and southeastern states are running 20-30% in the surplus category. So some good news there with soil moisture levels. And across the west, you get into the northern extent of that monsoon setup, and the air is not quite moist enough to get the clouds to grow. They may grow vertically enough to spark a little lightning, and you get a little lightning going, 2 drops of rain, and you're off to the races with fire potential. And that remains an elevated situation through eastern Washington, Oregon, parts of the Great Basin area. And it is the northwestern heat. They will be up around 100 degrees the next couple of days in eastern Washington, then mid to upper 90s after that, 110, 115 desert southwest, Imperial Valley. Of course, it's all irrigated stuff down there anyway. So we're keeping an eye on the monsoon setup farther southeast from there into New Mexico, West Texas, parts of Colorado, and or dry base thunderstorm activity the farther north and northwest you go. Tuesday afternoon, nice drier air mass, that frontal passage that came on by with a smattering of showers, thunderstorms yesterday has some better coverages again across eastern Indiana, the Ohio River Valley, and the Buckeye State as we speak. The humidity, the dew points are down from the 70s into the 60s, so nighttime lows will be a little bit better as well. Better comfort, I guess, with sleeping in mind. And you can see most of the more significant moisture down through Dixie, the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic region. And once again, West Texas and New Mexico will get beat up with some pretty good size thunderstorm activity. And that'll be the story heading on through tonight as well. West Texas cotton country, livestock, and through New Mexico. A little severe weather may get going around the Black Hills and this time of the year and drain that cooler, drier air into these thunderstorms off the northern and central plains. That is the ripe ingredient to get these air currents to go up and down, up and down. You put a layer of ice on, you melt it down, you bring it right back up again with another updraft, and that's how you come up with these baseball-sized hail, the quick and dirty of it all. Mid-Atlantic region is still wet, scattered showers, thunderstorms down through Florida, same through tomorrow morning, and it's pretty much a quiet day's worth of weather across the Corn Belt. On the return flow, on the backside of that high, as the south winds return, maybe a little daytime heating, and there's a lot of moisture still in the atmosphere relative to drying out and relative to early July. So you put some heat on that with probably some 90-degree heat, and that'll seems to be like the magic number to get the air parcels to rise, and you get a couple of these scattered showers and thunderstorms into parts of the upper Mississippi Valley. Still wet, but that's the monsoon setup over the southwestern states, and the rainy season is well underway, and that's good news considering the degree of dryness and drought. I think last late winter and spring they had fires in the Everglades, and they're still kind of remedying that situation there. So the rains are of benefit in through Florida, and they will continue on there mostly the afternoon and evening hours with the Gulf breeze moving inland, the Atlantic breeze moving inland. They serve up and form up a convergence zone, and they just rain themselves out over northern and central Florida during the course of the afternoon and evening hours. And again, a couple of widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. Western Corn Belt back into the southern plains. 2-day forecast for rainfall shapes up like this. You can see really 3 areas: Mid-Atlantic region down through the Gulf Coast. There's some indication that something's trying to get cooking. The water temperatures are certainly conducive. We still have some El Nino related issues with wind shear and Saharan dust still, and the intertropical convergence zone where the winds, the trade winds from the northeast and southeast kind of collide just north of the equator. They're a little too strong and not very converging, if you will, in that part of the hemisphere. And there's not a lot of impressive African monsoon moisture going. So, and it's early in the season. I'm aware of that, but nothing too fantastic on the tropical weather scene. And you can see moisture down through Mexico, Rio Grande, West Texas, New Mexico, garden variety amounts at 1/10 to 1/4, maybe 3/4 of an inch out of a downpour into the Western Corn Belt areas. At least this time of the year, generally speaking, you don't get a lot of wind up aloft, or what we call directional wind shear from, let's say, one direction at the surface. You turn it one direction more than 30 degrees as you climb in altitude and elevation. And that's how you kind of spin up these severe weather generating thunderstorms. And so they tend to be not that. They're just kind of garden variety, but they tend to be slower And that's how you come up with these quick 1 to 2 inch downpours or 3 inch downpours in 60 to 90 minutes. Just the general weaker nature to the searing currents up aloft, which is typical of this point in almost midsummer time, at least early July. The beige areas, there's some heat-related issues of the northern plains, and it's just a day or two over some portion of the holiday weekend, and even the heat is not alarming for outdoor work, scouting the fields, the barbecue, the cookout, the parade, livestock operations, maybe just a little extra water and ventilation. That's about all you need. Note some heat, by the way, for you folks who like to go up to Alaska. Chicago weather forecaster, longtime guy, just retired, and I miss him on the TV. A couple of years ago, Tom Skilling has a place up there in Alaska, and he will and others enjoy warm and wet weather out there. But otherwise, the wet weather is confined to the upper Midwest, Western Great Lakes, the monsoon set up in West Texas, New Mexico, and across Central and South Florida. Tropics. We're going to continue to really take a more detailed look at this on each and every of these updates, and of course a little more detail when we do the live streams. And there's the visible satellite picture from this morning. A couple of knots of clouds down into the Florida Keys, maybe towards the Bahamas, western Cuba, and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Note the absence, that western area of continental, that's the western African continent. 1 or 2 little blips, and that's even just too far south of that cloud area. And so the headlines for the tropics, and I know it's early still, but this was supposed to have been a ramped up early and often start to the tropical season, according to the feds, but it's not going to be that way. But we do keep an eye on sometimes these disturbances. They may not be named, but they have just the good conglomeration and clustering of thunderstorm activity, and they just don't move. They just sit there. They may wane their way down during the midday, but ramp back up during the late night to mid-morning and late afternoon and early evening. And so we're keeping an eye on maybe some double-digit rainfall totals over the next 5 to 7 days, parts of Florida, including that I-4 corridor on points on southward. So that's the headlines we're going with going forward here. Dry time into the northern and central plains. A fair amount of the Corn Belt over the course of the holiday weekend from west to east. There will be these scattered showers and thunderstorms. So have plans B in place just in case, but not a complete wash, although some downpours may be slower moving. Watching the eastern sections of the Gulf of Mexico or southwest Atlantic, but I think it's going to be the eastern Gulf. The waters are a little warmer there. There's less wind shear, relatively speaking, and that's climatologically speaking the right spot to get something trying to get going. And I don't foresee this being unnamed feature, but a lot of rain down that part of the country, a half a foot or more in the coming days. The monsoon setup continues in the southwestern states. There is the Friday to Saturday to Sunday upper configuration. Note the H's, that's warm to hot highs at that 588 to 594 line this time of the year. Upper 80s, low 90s, a few spots maybe the mid 90s for a day or so. But if you're in good shape with soil moisture, most are, we're just going to rack up accelerated crop growth and development and growing degree day units in many areas. Some opportunity to continue to push northward on winter wheat harvest as well into Monday and Tuesday. A little circulation offshore California. The main polar jet and jet stream pattern are now combined, and they're up across the Canadian prairie. And that's pretty much the story. It's very much slightly El Nino-ish, slightly neutral state. It's not anywhere full neutral state or going into a La Nina. Again, that was the angle that the feds were looking at, and we continue to be on the opposite end of it. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little boundary moving through the upper Midwest. The Plain States may spark again. Not a complete dry spell of weather over the holiday weekend. What do you expect? It's July 4th. But it'll be a warm rain. Look at it that way, with a couple of showers and thunderstorms and a gusty thunderstorm and a slow-moving 1 or 2 for parts of the northern and central plains, northern and western Corn Belt. We'll get a boundary that kind of stalls out, then begins to lift back north as a warm front, and sometimes along those boundaries, you get a couple of these clusters of showers and thunderstorms, and you may come up with a quick inch or two of rain in some spots, but nothing terribly widespread expected around zero. So it continues to be going forward here the next 5 to 7 days, par for the course stuff. weather-wise. A little heat, a little humidity, a little bit of rain. Most of the organized rains where the polar jet sits this time of the year in the upper Midwest, Western Great Lakes region, but we may pop off something I-80 corridor on southward, a little wetter in the Ohio Valley. That's going to be a trend that builds, I think, going forward, as we have been talking about since the springtime season. Pretty good plume of moisture for Old Mexico, West Texas, New Mexico itself, and look at the shades of red down there just offshore Florida, including down there towards Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Coral Gables, the I-4 corridor, those attraction areas to the Space Coast, and points southward, some pretty substantial rains in the coming days. Late last week's drought monitor did not take into account the rains that happened a couple of days before on the 21st to 22nd. So still showing a little abnormally dry, but better than it has been. Southern Wisconsin, Northwest Illinois, and through Michigan. Improvement in the Western Corn Belt and even in through Nebraska, although some of that came at a price, but improvement. But it will be those Northwestern and Western Corn Belt areas that have to, first of all, and will be watched as we get deeper into the month of July and August, with maybe a quick flash drought situation developing there, when the Atlantic Basin, that's fancy jargon for the Atlantic ocean waters, get more active with the tropical season. This is the warm high over the southwestern states, that closed little loop there. That's a hot high there. Systems over the top of the ridge, the ring of fire, if you will. So we're still driving a couple of thunderstorm clusters out of the northern plains and upper Midwest into the northern and eastern Corn Belt over the next 10 to 15 days. By my estimate, that takes us through mid-July. Nothing out of control on temps. There are some areas that are moving through pollinating or flowering on the corn and soybean side of things, respectively. Not concerned at all about anything. Maybe some of the areas that missed out on recent rains in the Western Corn Belt, eastern areas a little slower to get going, but they're moving in that pace, and a little more delayed in the far southeastern part of the Corn Belt. Warmth is there, but it's not out of control with livestock operations, water requirements, ventilation, and all that. Two main areas of wet weather: the Southwest into the southeastern states. Normal precip, again, uneven on the distribution of these rain events when they come through. Same with scope and coverage and intensity and amounts. Northern plains, parts of the Corn Belt, a little above average, central and southern plains. Nothing alarming here. Now, this is the Fed's outlook, but I don't have any reason to change it. And it was something that just kind of lines up well in the shorter term of it from our thinking. And Sarah, that's it. There are no headlines coming out of this weather office here. Otherwise, no change. When I was working, I tell stories of Earl Finkel all the time, and because I learned so much from that guy. He knew his meteorology, and the guy was a character. As his longtime clients would pick up the phone and hear this: a commodity guy, a concrete guy, and Earl would just get into one of these moods, and he would just say, "No change. Call me when you see something," and click on a client. That would be it. We'd look at him, but these guys were with him when he started the place up at the old Palwaukee Airport a million years ago. So that's it. I have nothing else to report. There's nothing. It's normal July weather. Hang in there. Keep an eye when they get busy in the Atlantic, and we'll let you know when that flash drought gets going. But for some, it may be okay. Others, different story. But so far, so good into the early stretch of July.
Well, Greg, call us when something's going on, okay?
No, I like doing these a couple of times a week. So sometimes when you get that call, it's not good news.
Right. We got to do this now. There's something happening.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for the update. Just to give you guys a heads up, we're not going to make Greg work on Friday the 4th, which is normally when we do these, is Tuesday and Friday. So we will touch base with you.
Except on radio, because people have radio jobs.
Well, yeah, you can do radio.
Don't have real jobs.
And you'll be on This Week in Agribusiness.
Yes.
But we're going to let you take a Friday off here.
Thank
and
you.
enjoy the holiday and the fireworks and hopefully perfect weather. So pressure.
We'll see. I'm trying to get back to both doing gas grilling, which you did a couple of nights ago, which is fine. I still have been a few years removed from the charcoal end of it. And the first to go over that a couple of days ago was not very impressive. So I got work to do there. That's what I'll do over the 4th.
What about one of those flat irons? Have you tried that yet?
Like the griddle thing that you put on there? I want to do that. I'm going to do that on the gas grill, because you could do breakfast. Yep. I love breakfast. You can have breakfast ready for me, or I make it for dinner. So I'm going to try and do that one morning, is do some eggs and some bacon and all that kind of jazz on the griddle on the gas, while I try to remaster the charcoal and not ruin everyone's meal.
You got a busy weekend.
Yeah, bike ride, yard work, but you know what? That's what I like to do, and hang out with the family and the knucklehead kids. So we'll go. There
you go. Very good. All right, well, have a good one, and we'll see you next week. Thank you all for tuning in as well.
Bye.